series arrives. Not tonight. They played in Toronto last night. But
yeah, see, I think it's the only game tomorrow night.
Leafs up 2-0 on the Panthers. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, joined now on the Western Hotline by ESPN's Greg Wyshynski. We've enjoyed Greg's visits many times over the years. Especially, I'm grateful when it's during the playoffs like this. ESPN has the doubleheader tonight. And Greg, let me say first, really, Bulldog should be the one to say it. He enjoyed your work on the broadcast last night.
on ESPN Bet Live, you mean?
On the
intermission? The intermission show. With the parade.
Oh no, dude, that's my buddy Ardo. We look the same. We both look.
Dude,
like
are you kidding me?
The incriminating president. Yeah, no.
Oh my God!
You could always tell because he's the one putting over Toronto, and I could care less about Canada.
That's right.
That makes sense. A lot of. I feel like such a donkey now. I went to your Twitter feed and looked and saw the picture that you had posted. I'm like, oh yeah, of course that's you. Do
you guys think they'd let me within 20 feet of the adult table?
Well, that's why I was so impressed. I'm like, yes. Oh, we're talking to Greg. I was watching with my son. He thought it was you two. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Greg Wyshynski. We're talking to him tomorrow. Cool. Man, I feel like such a jerk. I'm sorry.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Greg's nice talking to you.
Why does Greg care if there's a parade in Toronto?
I know, right? I thought you were just trolling Canada, and I could get behind that.
It's a good bit.
Yeah. It is a good bit. I mean, I've been doing the bit on social media myself, but actually I don't think it's a bit. I mean, like I seriously think we're in trouble here, folks, and there's a chance the Leafs could win the Cup this year. Like, it's not great for those of us who have enjoyed the Schadenfreude of no Cup since 1967. I mean, like, they're talented. They've yet to have a moment in these playoffs where their psyche has been broken, which is usually when they're eliminated. And they might have the guy behind the bench in Craig Berube who's, has some proof of concept vis-a-vis keeping his team focused and shutting out the outside noise with what he did in St. Louis. So I'm a little concerned. Like, if they can get past Florida, I think they beat whoever comes out of the Metro. And then, we'll see what happens with the Western Conference with Dallas and Edmonton. But, like, it's a little disconcerting right now that this could be the Leafs year.
Yeah, they have really changed. It's been a storyline if people have been following them. I'm sure some people in our audience have been all season long. Like, style-wise, how they play. It even came up watching, I think, one of the games in the Ottawa series that Buccigross and Weeks were doing. John was saying, like, there's just not a lot of offense from Toronto tonight. And I'm thinking to myself, this is how they've been mostly all year. Like, they've got the star power, so they can still do it, like, just on a dime, bang, just boat race you. But mostly they've been playing. I think they've been learning how to play all year, and now it's coming home to roost for them.
Yeah, they're fundamentally sound defensively. They've got good goaltending finally this year with Stolarz when he's healthy, and with Wall, who was pretty good last night, or as good as he needed to be. But, you also have some guys that, for all the criticism that the core four has gotten for not performing in the playoffs, I think Nylander's been insane. Maybe the second most valuable player in the playoffs behind Mikko Rantanen at this point. And Marner's gotten his points. Still waiting on Austin Matthews to announce his attendance in the proceedings, but that's fine. But they're good, and they're also tough. I mean, there's a certain toughness to this team to withstand what Ottawa was throwing at them, to withstand what Florida can throw at them. Obviously, Florida's already cost them their goaltender with what Sam Bennett did in Game 1. They're tough. They can push back, and also they're not dumb. They didn't do dumb things last night in trying to exact revenge for what the Panthers did in Game 1, which is usually what happens when you play the Panthers, but the Leafs didn't take the bait.
Yeah, very different, yeah. Ekman Larson and McCabe on the back, and Tanev, too. I was worried when they signed him that he would, be on one leg by the time the playoffs got here, but they managed to get through that season, and he's still there. The guy that really, to me, is a piece that these Leafs have never had through this window is Nyes. To me, like, he is just such a different sort of player than any of the core group, and I feel like just adds an element there. Like, he's going to be a problem, I think, for years if you're interested in the Atlantic Division like we are in Buffalo.
For sure, and the other part about him too is he's young, so he doesn't carry the burden of a dozen seasons of playoff disappointments and get the blame for it and have the media on him all the time asking him why he can't win. I mean, he's also, like, new to the proceedings still in some ways. So they're quite good. I hesitate to put them over Florida because this Florida team could easily just put on the afterburners and and take the series. But they've, in order to do that, you're going to have to plant the seed of doubt in the minds of the Maple Leafs that this isn't the year. And like I said, no one's been able to do that yet, even in the slightest. Even Ottawa couldn't do it, despite pushing them to Game 6 in the first round.
With Greg Wyshynski, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. So would, for you, or maybe even know a number, would the odds of a Canadian Cup be better than 50-50?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I had Dallas coming out of the West and winning the Cup, and as long as Mikko Rantanen is continuing to tally hat tricks every game, I feel pretty confident about that. But there's definitely, I mean, like if I had to stake my life on it, right, I would say the Cup Finals, Edmonton and Toronto. In which case we don't have any escape. We're going to have the first Canadian Stanley Cup since 1993. But I mean, like, it kind of feels like it might be headed there, you know. And then you get Matthews versus McDavid. You get the Leafs versus the Oilers. You have the Oilers trying to win the cup that they lost in Game 7 last year, and trying to, and we'll probably have all of Canada outside of Ontario behind them in trying to prevent the Leafs from winning. Like, it's a really, really compelling final, and it kind of feels like it might be heading there. The Oilers are playing really well too. Like, I was super impressed with them defensively the last few games. Their depth is good. I still really like Dallas, especially if they can get Heiskanen back at some point, but I mean, it kind of, you know, you can just take a deep breath. Go outside, smell it in the air, boys. It's Toronto, Edmonton.
Yeah. Heiskanen, do you have a guess there? I mean, it just feels like once he started taking morning skates, I thought, oh, it's got to be happening soon. And we got through the whole first round, and now we're a game into round 2, and still no change. Is there any news on that front?
No, I mean, he's still working his way back. I mean, maybe you know, with some of the, you know, with the win in Game 1, they probably maybe can give him a little bit more time to work back. But I'm honestly shocked based on everything that we had heard and everything that they had been saying towards the end of the Colorado series that Robertson made it back before Heiskanen did. But, you know, listen, they gutted out the Colorado series, which is extremely impressive when you consider what the Avalanche had on their roster and who was missing for Dallas. And then they go and do what they did in Game 1 of the Winnipeg series, and so they can afford to be patient right now with their injured guys.
Checking the odds before, 2 days ago, I guess the second round had started, but barely. I saw Dallas as the favorite by a little bit over Carolina, and Washington was the longest shot on the board at plus 1,000 to win it. And I wasn't expecting that, Greg. I mean, I saw Game 1, and maybe that now I get it. But as someone who questioned Washington all year, like I was doing, they get the 5-game win in the first round. I did not expect the betting markets to show that Washington was like the biggest long shot, not by a tremendous amount. Thoughts on that matchup?
Well, I'm in DC now, hence the sirens, and I'm going to the game tonight. And I'm really intrigued to see what their counterpunch is going to be, because that Game 1 loss was the kind of loss that happens and has you questioning whether you can win a series. Now, their coach actually had to come out and say today before the game, we believe we can win the series and play our best hockey against Carolina. The simple fact that it needs to be addressed it tells you what a humbling defeat it was in Game 1, where the Caps couldn't get anything going. That being said, it's still the Hurricanes, which meant that it was a 1-goal game in overtime. You know, even when they're that dominant, even when they're that good, this is a team that constantly plays to the margins in the postseason and is in constant dire straits because they're winning games by 1 goal and hoping that someone can find that goal. That's why they traded for Rantanen earlier this year. That's why they traded for Gensel last year. They're perpetually the team that has to hope somebody scores in a perfect situation to get them over the hump. So, again, it's not the most encouraging Game 1 for Washington. The people that were heavy on Carolina are probably feeling pretty good about life right now. But at the end of the day, it was a one-bounce game.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that is it. It would be fitting if Carolina were to go on some kind of a run here, because this was the year I finally decided I'm done backing them in any way, shape, or form. Because it just every year, it's just like they look like one of the best teams in the league, and then it's like, I don't know, Boston has their number for some reason or whatever it is. They just can't seem to get there. Do you think there's any fatigue there with front office, coach, anything? Like if the wheels were to come off of this thing, I mean, I imagine if they win a second round series that everyone is safe, but it feels to me like they've been, this team for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Tulsky is their new GM. He took over for Don Waddell, so there's a little bit of new blood there. I mean, he was the assistant to Waddell, who's now in Columbus. But I mean, he's going to be given some time to kind of put his stamp on the roster. They took a big swing with Rantanen, and the fact that he, didn't sign and they had to trade him again to Dallas, there might be some virtue in what they got back in Logan Stankoven, who's a good young player. But it still is kind of embarrassing to take that kind of swing and then not have the guy in the playoffs. And Brind'Amour, listen, he gets them to the playoffs every year. I don't think there's a lot of consternation about his role right now and his job right now. I think when he leaves, it'll be him deciding when to leave. But, maybe it's the new pope that has me feeling a little bit religious today.
Let's go.
There are hockey gods. We know that. I mean, Buffalo fans know that more than anybody, that there's hockey gods.
Yeah.
And maybe the hockey gods decree a Toronto Edmonton final, or maybe they decree a Mikko Rantanen revenge tour of beating Colorado in the first round and then facing the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, that could easily be what the hockey gods decree as well.
I only felt compelled to ask the question about Brind'Amour's future because the Sabres just hired Eric Stahl as a special assistant to the GM. And, just we see how many 06 Hurricanes we can fit under one tent.
It's beautiful.
It's wild to me. Like, you guys are collecting them like Pokemon. Is Joe Corvo walking through that door anytime soon? Like, my God. But again, it's also like hockey nepotism, right? I mean, why is Eric Stahl there? Eric Stahl is there because he played with Kevin Adams. You guys mentioned on the update. Why is Joel Quenneville in Anaheim? Because he was a teammate in Hartford and New Jersey with Pat Verbeek, their GM. It's always like this familial relationship, incestuous thing in the NHL. So I'm not surprised that Kevin is surrounding himself with some former teammates up there.
Saying that, the Sabres in this interminable playoff drought have gone, if you will, outside the box. Not always in a good way, but, first-time GMs and coaches, not first-time coaches in Kruger's case, but still a little bit of a different hire, and then Granato, too. What's left to say, Greg? I mean, 14 years. No one of these names that we see bounce around running franchises all the time. The guys, the Waddells that get the next job the day after just because, I don't know, there's some credibility there or something. The Sabres seem to they can't be bothered to make a move like that up top.
I mean, Botterill's got to be one of the few guys. I mean, I guess Bilesma too. Like that got rehired after not working out in Buffalo. Like a lot of these guys haven't gotten another job.
And it took many years for both guys to get top jobs again.
It did. I don't know. I've in thinking about the Sabres, like I think it's pretty clear that they might be at the point where they need to start packaging some of these younger guys that they've been waiting on together to go and get guys that are maybe in their mid-20s that are a little bit closer to their prime. I mean, I know Elias Pettersson's name has come up a bunch with the Canucks looking to maybe move him, but who knows? You'd be buying extremely low on him, and he's not the same player that he was a couple of years ago. But that's one path that it could take, and then it ultimately comes down to whether or not you have the faith that their front office is the right one to make those kinds of moves. Because once you do start packaging young guys and sending young players out the door, as every Sabres fan knows, it could come back to haunt you in a pretty severe way. So that's the trick, and they're in a pickle right now.
No kidding. It can come back to haunt us. I mean, it's not even believable the way we watched the Sabres trade players who went and won the Conn Smythe or won cups immediately for just over and over. It's happened. Josh Norris is hopefully not the next example of a trade gone wrong, but he only played 2 games here. He was injured.
3 maybe, yeah.
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
Would Norris from Ottawa not have been available? Would he have been available if not for the injury history?
Potentially. I mean, like Cousins is younger. I think he's got a bit of a different skill set. He's controllable contract-wise too. So there were still, reasons to make that deal outside of the frustration with him being unable to stay healthy. But I mean, obviously, like the fact that they're looking for a bit more stability and they're looking for a guy to stay in the lineup certainly factored into their decision. I like him as a player. I'm kind of bummed that he can't stay healthy because I do think that he's actually a pretty solid offensive player and a good hand to have in the middle. But But again, the concern was health. And then he played, like you said, 2 games. So I mean, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
Yeah, it sure is. So how about the overall here, Greg? It's been a pretty incredible year for the league with the success of the Four Nations face-off. I feel like these playoffs with the Game 7s we just had over the weekend that were just, great theater. I feel like the league is maybe riding as high as it ever has been. I wonder how much they would be fearing an all-Canadian Stanley Cup final like you were talking about a few minutes ago.
So, there's good and bad, right? Four Nations was a massive success to the point where now they're rethinking their international calendar and what they're going to do with the All-Star game. And I think that's probably right, even though I do think that the conditions were very specific to this year geopolitically as to why that thing popped off the way it did. They've got a collection of young stars. Scoring has been over 6 goals per game for the last few seasons. Power plays clicked in a way they hadn't clicked since the middle of the 1980s. There's a lot of things that are going right, and I think next year's Olympic tournament's going to be even, a bigger boom because I think the Americans have a legit shot at winning gold. But the Canadian thing, the Canadian part of your question is an interesting one because while those games will be awesome and the atmospheres will be awesome, and I do think a lot of American fans really enjoyed watching the atmosphere in Edmonton and really enjoy watching the atmosphere in Winnipeg, for example, and kind of get that almost like elite college football vibe from how much the community cares about these things.
Yes.
It is tough for this league to really thrive without the Rangers, without the Bruins, without the Penguins, without the Flyers, without the Blackhawks, without the Red Wings, without all of the teams that kind of 2X the audience when they're contending. And so that's kind of the downside right now is that we have a lot of really good teams and a lot of really good players and some amazing hockey, and they're not necessarily the franchises that the casual fan wants to watch.
Interesting. I'm very much with this group. I get bored by those other teams, the New York, Philadelphia stuff. I'm glad to not have it. I'm a Hockey Night in Canada kid, though. I look forward to those ratings lists when they come out, the top 10 cities for viewership, because Buffalo's always on it, and so is Providence, and West Palm. There's one city in Florida that's always on the top 10.
It's West Palm. It's all the snowbirds and New Yorkers that migrated down there so they could buy McMansions. But yeah, that's one of the real tragedies of the way that Sabres have gone for the last over a decade. Is when that team is competitive and when it pops, we know what the audience is going to be, not only locally, but all the same people that flood bars on Sundays to watch the Bills in cities across the country are all of a sudden going to be repping the Sabres if that team ever becomes relevant again. And it's something the league has certainly missed.
Well said. I like the college football comp too. That works. I'm thinking about the people outside the Leafs arena and so on.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned you're in Washington. Where can we find you on the streaming / or just like social media? Because I don't want to make any mistakes here.
I'll be sucking down Guinnesses at the Irish Channel after the game. Oh, you mean like online?
Yeah, like during the game. Sorry.
You can read my stuff at ESPN.com as per usual, and pithy comments at Wyshynski on Twitter. I should also mention my friend Jeff Merrick. And I are doing our podcast again every Tuesday on dailyfaceoff.com, the Merrick versus Wyshynski podcast every Tuesday.
It's back.
It's on YouTube, so you can watch two subtly aging hockey pundits, one of whom combs his hair, me. The other one, I don't know what's going on. But we do our show every Tuesday now, and it's great.
What is the status of Mise-en Pod?
Oh, my God, it's still thriving. Me and my wife, Ruby, do Mise-en Pod. It's a food TV podcast. On the Puck Soup Patreon, if you're interested in food TV or more specifically in Top Chef, because we do the podcast every week during Top Chef. We just did the top 5 and 5 worst Restaurant Wars pop-up names of all time, a bonus episode. Big fan of Kentucky's Third Coast. Think about it. We've got 2 coasts. The Low Country, where you get crawdaddies, that's the Third Coast. So yeah, that's the podcast I like to do the most because it's just me and my wife sitting across the kitchen table having a beer talking about Top Chef.
I like it this year. Toronto, speaking of Toronto, it's the first time I think they ever went to a restaurant I've been to when they went to Ravine Vineyards, Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's like 15 minutes from home.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was gorgeous there, too. What's really funny is they labeled the season Destination Canada, and they've yet to leave Toronto in about 8 episodes so far. So it's actually quite appropriate when you talk to people around Canada that get pissed off about how Toronto considers itself to be the center of the universe. The fact that Top Chef is doing Destination Canada but hasn't left a 3-block radius of Toronto, I think, is appropriate.
I would look forward to hearing you on one of these podcasts talk about your favorite or least favorite contestants. I've decided Kristen Kish, who is now the host of the show, is, I think, my favorite all-time contestant on the show, too. I don't think the show really misses Padma. I thought she was great, but I love the current host.
She was awesome. I'm a big fan of Buddha, who was on last season, because he was like a fan of the show that studied how to win, like scientifically, and bought like 200 different molds for like making gelatin and stuff. And anyone who's a big fan of the show and also has broken the thing down into what Jeopardy contestants do to try to rig the board and everything, like to have that down on Top Chef is really impressive.
Right. Well, we're going to have to, at some point, you get up this way, Matty Matheson's place in Ridgeway, Ontario, which is just about a 20-minute jaunt over the Peace Bridge, Rizzo's House of Parm, has been getting a lot of love. And, it's a tough table, but I think we got to try to make something happen for you.
Oh, all right. Well, now you've got my attention. Any favors to be called in by media moguls in the Buffalo area, I have to pay attention.
Let's please not start 9-14-1 next year, please.
Right. You have a reason to come here at some point.
Let's get it off the ground. Right. Greg, enjoy your night in Washington. Thanks as always.
Anytime. Thanks.
Greg Wyshynski on the